Hey everyone, welcome back to Bipolar Brought Balance. I'm LoMenzo Washcovick, and today's episode is going to be all about privilege in mental health. And the reason I think this is so important is because, for one, the mental health system in this country is broken, and identifying privileges that you have in it can not only, for one, create some gratitude, but also helps us identify those people who don't have the same privileges as us and how we might be able to support them, or maybe what resources are out there that everyone isn't aware of that can better support people not only going through mental health, diagnoses, and treatment, but the people that love and support them as well. I want to say that I know sometimes the word privilege or talking about privilege is something that people misunderstand. Some people think that the word privilege means you didn't struggle at all or you didn't have any hardship. And that's definitely not true. What privilege actually means is there was an element of things that were easier for you, or a situation where you had an advantage over another group. It's not saying your situation was perfect. It's just an advantage. And in mental health care in particular, I feel like I've experienced a lot of privilege. Some people assume that privilege is financial and monetary, and it is a little bit. We're going to talk about that today, but it's definitely not only financial. And that's why I want to break down some of the privileges that I've had in my journey so that we can identify if that's a privilege or resource that's available to you. And if not, maybe there's something we need to do about it. So, my very first privilege in my mental health experience is the fact that I had really good insurance. I had a full-time job at a corporation at the time of my diagnosis and my mental health episode. So, I was living this life. I had started at a company, been working there for many years, and then I had this intense mental health episode. I had a manic episode that resulted in my hospitalization. I was in psychosis at the end and taken to the emergency room by my family. And I was then checked into inpatient treatment where I received a bipolar disorder diagnosis. And because I worked for a corporation at that time and had really good insurance, I was able to get immense and long-term care that was not available to everyone. And not only just people with insurance or not insurance, I saw a disparity in care between people that had insurance. So I had my acute episode. I was first in the emergency room and then able to find a bed at Rogers Behavioral Health, which has locations nationwide, but it started here in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, near where I live. And I was checked in there to the inpatient adult unit where I received a bipolar disorder diagnosis. And I was then in inpatient treatment for 6 days, followed by full-time outpatient treatment for nearly 7 weeks. And other people out there who have gone through inpatient and outpatient treatment will know that that is a long amount of time, especially for insurance coverage. I saw a lot of people in my programs be told after a couple of days or even a week, week and a half, that they were good and it was time to go back to work. And that was very much based on an insurance decision, a quantity of days, and a dollar amount, not the care and the well-being of that person. And I point it out as a privilege because some people who are struggling with their mental health or maybe have a diagnosis and are going through a really hard time, they don't take advantage of the fact that they could get care and maybe at no or low cost because of their insurance. And I like to call that out because when I was in treatment and I saw people around me get told by insurance that it was time to end care, that really did make me appreciative for the fact that I was still in treatment, that I wasn't working. And at first, that felt like a bad thing to me. It felt like I needed to get back to work as soon as possible. And I began to learn that it was actually very fortunate that I had access to care and was able to pause work for effectively 3 whole months. And I know for a fact that if I wouldn't have gotten that treatment and I would have rushed back to work after my inpatient week, I would have returned. I would not have been stable. I wouldn't have found balance. I would not have been able to set the appropriate boundaries that I needed to set to return to work. And so having that insurance, getting that treatment, that in and of itself was and is a privilege. And if you've been debating if you should get yourself help and you do have great insurance or access to care, I want you to take it, because it doesn't mean something's wrong with you. It means you're trying to get better for yourself and for everyone around you. So if you do have that privilege of insurance or even the financial means to get care, do it. It means you're strong and powerful, and I'm proud of you. Okay, let's go to my second element of privilege, which is access to care and information and education. And I not only had access to it, but I believed my diagnosis. And I know for a lot of people that's hard, or a struggle, or a journey, should I say. And I had some family members who also had mental health diagnoses, which is what made my diagnosis so easy, I guess you could say, and it made it so believable to myself. I believe I was born with bipolar disorder. So once I had that diagnosis, I could also look back historically on my life and see periods that aligned with what I was learning about my mental health diagnosis. And that knowledge and education and understanding helped me to feel more confident in my diagnosis and also in how I showed up every day. And so that education and information is a privilege. And if you have the ability to get that for yourself, whether it's through free resources or paid resources, I encourage you to do that, because even just learning about yourself and your diagnosis can be so, so valuable in your recovery. The other thing that ties right into that is supportive friends and family. And I just want to preface by saying, I know that this is not everyone's journey. And if you are struggling with friends or family that don't believe in mental health or don't believe in your diagnosis, I want to say that I'm here for you. And please reach out to me. I would be happy to listen and connect you with other people who might have the same diagnosis as you or a lived experience that you can share in, because your diagnosis is real. What you're experiencing is real, and you should be supported in that and surrounded by people that want to learn about it. And you might have friends or family members that are afraid or unsure what this means for you or for them, and that's okay. But providing education or resources can sometimes help not only calm some of their fears, but provide better understanding for you and your family. And so there might be books that you can read or things you can listen to or watch, and try to create that connection with your friends and family, because they might not know if they should, or they might not want to burden you or ask you to give them resources. But if you do have resources that you think they would find helpful, I think you should share them. I personally was given Julie Fast's book about bipolar disorder when I was still in treatment. And it's great because it's for people living with bipolar disorder and people supporting them. And so my inpatient treatment team recommended that my partner and my parents read the book as well. And they did. And I recommend that book to people still to this day, because it was so valuable in giving us shared language and verbiage that we could use. And I also think for anyone listening whose family maybe doesn't believe them or doesn't understand, if you can get them to listen to another person who either has lived experience or is a doctor or has some sort of authority, that can back up what they're hearing from you or give them more understanding without the lens of your personal relationship. And so I understand that having supportive family and friends is a privilege. If you do have that, appreciate them. And supportive friends and family might not know about mental health, so you can help by educating them and just latching on to the fact that they are supportive and they care about you. And even if they don't understand, they're there for you. And so try to acknowledge that if you have it, thank them for being there, and bring them into the fold as much as you feel comfortable so that you can deepen their understanding, which will ultimately deepen the support that they're able to provide you. Okay. Finding the right medication combination that works for you and has low side effects is a privilege. It's a privilege in many different health conditions, but particularly with mental health, especially with bipolar disorder, schizophrenia. These are often diagnoses where the patient is going to be on 2 or more medications the rest of their life. And for me personally, I have one of the most fortunate, privileged experiences ever. I am on the medication that my inpatient doctor first prescribed me 7.5 years ago. The dosage has changed a little bit over the years, but the combination of the first 2 types of medication that we tried worked for me. And there were side effects, especially in the beginning. I felt that overly sleepy, like I was in a fog or a haze, pretty much all through my outpatient treatment time, which is why returning to work would have never been possible. But that eventually dissipated a little bit. But I want to say, 6-9 months after I started taking the medication, I was still sleeping so heavily in the night that one time my husband, then boyfriend, was taking our dog out in the middle of the night, and we lived in an apartment where the doors automatically locked, and he didn't have his fob. And he was pounding on the door in the middle of the night, trying to wake me up to open the door. And that's how deep my sleep was. And I think for a lot of people in the beginning, that is very, very hard to adjust to the fact that you're going to be in such a deep sleep for 6, 7, 8 hours a night that you're not even going to wake up to something that disruptive. But I got through it. And now my medication helps me sleep and get good quality sleep. But I'll tell you, I would feel comfortable watching my niece for the weekend and sleeping and taking my medication. And if she needed to wake me up, I would be able to wake up and take care of her and go back to sleep. And so that type of side effect can sometimes get better, but there are other side effects that for some people make medications completely unbearable. One of my side effects was weight gain, and part of it is because one of my medications gives me the munchies effectively. So it is a side effect, but it's also a little bit of self-control that I'm not enacting. I don't really police myself on food. So I'll be eating sweet treats and dessert at night. And that was kind of a payoff that I was okay with, but I've reached a new normal. So I gained some weight when I first got on the meds, but then it plateaued. And for some people, I met a woman in treatment, she gained 40 pounds in 2 months, and she was a small individual. So things like that, you're obviously going to want to change that medication. You're not going to want to keep taking that. And so many people struggle with the amount of time it takes to try and different combinations and different side effects. And even just to let a medication build up in your system takes, 6+ weeks sometimes. So if you're on medication option number 4, you could be going at that for over a year. So I want to say I empathize so much with anyone who is struggling with that. And I'm so sorry that you're going through that. And there is light at the end of the tunnel. It just might be a little bit longer than you think. And medication is a foundation, but there are other things that you can do to help and support yourself as well. So as you're trying to find that right combination, definitely seek out other things that bring you balance and calm and stability. Another privilege is time and flexibility. So when we live with mental health conditions and we're aware of them, sometimes we can have the foresight to say, I got to take a wellness day, or I'm going to take a couple of days and just do, a no travel vacation where I don't go to work, I don't have responsibilities. That can be your pre-planning time, flexibility. But some of us have time and flexibility for when crises pop up as well. And I'll be honest, that was a benefit of my full-time gig was I kind of knew if I needed to take a break or go get treatment again, I would be able to do that. And I would be able to do that with the support of a job, whether it was being on medical leave or working and just taking some time. And not everyone has that. Now, as an entrepreneur, I kind of juggle or struggle with the fact that I feel like I need to be working, and I'm sometimes not the best at setting those hours or providing flexibility for myself when I need it. So if you have time flexibility where you can, take care of yourself on a day that you're feeling low or shuffle some meetings around to give yourself some breathing room, that is definitely a privilege in managing your mental health. And it's good to recognize it and exercise it when you can. And if you don't feel that you have that, I want you to ask yourself what the constraint is, because for some people, you truly need to physically be somewhere to be at work, and you need to be there to make money, and so on and so forth goes the trickle-down effect of why you don't have that flexibility. But for some of us, we don't give ourselves the flexibility. And what I mean by that is, if you have coworkers that sometimes leave early to pick kids up from school or go to a program of theirs or, see them participate in something, and you think that that's a valid excuse, but you needing to regain a day of calm is not a valid excuse, that might be self-imposed. And so I want you to ask yourself, what flexibility or freedom in your time do you have to try to give that to yourself as a privilege in how you can be well or balanced or find peace in that moment. So being able to be unwell and let yourself be unwell and let yourself take a break or a minute is a privilege, but it's one that I think some of us can get ourselves or obtain. These last ones here that I want to call out are really important because they're rooted in mental health stigma. And I think that we can get to a place where these are no longer a privilege, but a normalcy. And the first one is being believed. And that was a privilege that I experienced in all areas of my life. I was fortunate to be believed by my friends, by my family, by my coworkers. And I am so, so, so sorry if you are listening or watching and you have not been believed, or you have been told by friends and family that you're lazy or you're exaggerating or mental illness isn't real. If you've been told those things, I am so sorry. And I'm here to tell you that mental illness is real and you are not alone and nothing is wrong with you. Your brain just operates differently. And if you're not supported by people who believe that, that can be toxic for your mental health stability and your journey. And so I want to validate that if you need to create boundary or separation from those people, that is okay. And if you need to seek out spaces where you're believed, that is also good. You can find local NAMI chapters, for example, the National Alliance for Mental Illness. They'll have peer-to-peer classes where you can meet other people with mental health diagnoses. They even have peer-to-peer support for family and friends. So if you have a friend or family that doesn't believe, but they're willing to learn or listen or hear more, maybe seek that out so that they can get their own information, not just through your journey or your experience. And being believed is so important in being supported. So I want you to make sure you find at least one person that is in and knowledgeable about what you're going through and believes you. And that can be your care team, but it can also be community that you build. Maybe you find an online community of people with your diagnosis, or maybe you find a local community of people that you can connect with on some level that's about a different topic. Like maybe you go to a silent book club and you meet a person who loves reading the same types of books as you. And then you open up about mental health and see if they know anything or what they think about it or if they believe it. So finding support and believers that support you is possible outside of who is already your friends and family. Just takes a little work, but it is so important because being believed is a privilege and a layer of support and security as you navigate finding balance in your life. To wrap this up, I want to just say that naming privileges don't mean your struggle is not hard or doesn't exist. You still have the battle every day of managing your mental health, showing up for yourself. And by identifying privileges in your journey, it doesn't mean that it was not hard and that you haven't fought hard to get where you are today. So I don't want you to think of privileges as something that diminish or take away from your journey. But I do want you to think of them maybe as a way to have gratitude for your journey and your experience. And you might not have all of the privileges that I listed, but do you have some of them? And how can that help you feel more positive or supported as you navigate your mental health? And how can you also maybe open the door for people that don't have those same privileges? For me personally, I like to do advocacy, and I try to show people what lived experience can look like with bipolar disorder so that people aren't stigmatized. And that is because of my privilege. I don't think everyone needs to do that. But if you feel like you have privilege in your journey and you have support in your community, maybe consider sharing and helping other people better understand mental health. Because I do think when we lean into our privileges, it supports others, it helps them, and it identifies areas that we need to create more support and resources. If you have a privilege that you feel like is a part of your mental health journey, share it below or let someone know in your life if they are your privilege. Tell them how their support has helped you and how much it means to you. We'll see you on the next episode.